Have any of you ever felt conflicted about faith? Well, I certainly have, and I frequently ponder what it actually means and how one comes to have it. So let me tell you a little bit about my journey in faith. 25 years ago, my employer at the time, UNC Hospitals, offered its employees an 8-week course called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, a program developed by Jon Kabat-Zinn. Some of you may already have heard of him. He was a molecular biologist with a PhD from MIT who became interested in Buddhist practice, studying with teachers such as Jack Kornfield, Joseph Goldstein, and Thich Nhat Hanh. And he endeavored to integrate their teachings about meditation with scientific findings. In developing his stress reduction program, however, he removed all references to the religious and spiritual systems underpinning meditation, and he reframed it in entirely scientific terms, which, as it happens, was probably fortunate for someone as skeptical as I was. Prior to stumbling upon Won Buddhism, I was staunchly anti-religious and deeply suspicious of anything even faintly resembling dogma. Though I did not feel unduly stressed at work and had never known anyone with a meditation practice, I thought it might be interesting to see what it was all about. Besides, it was free to employees, so I signed up. I liked the parts about meditation and mindfulness, but I found myself uncomfortable with what seemed to be somehow vaguely spiritual aspects of the course. When I asked, well, what was supposed to happen in meditation, I was told, well, just try it, you'll see for yourself. So I took that advice to heart and continued to meditate fairly regularly on my own without really understanding why, but somehow believing that, like exercise, it was good for me. A few years later, in 2007, I noticed a small sign on the road near my home. Won Buddhist Meditation Center, everyone welcome. At the time, this Dharma hall had not yet been built. All I could see was some sort of structure almost entirely hidden behind tall hedges. I thought perhaps it was a monastery. After driving by it many times, I finally, and with no small amount of trepidation, decided to attend a Dharma service. I was greeted so warmly and welcomed so fully into the meditation circle that I became a regular member from that moment forward. Despite, however, that favorable first impression, I remained both curious and skeptical. I was uncomfortable with chanting, bowing, and especially praying. I found the moktak, the gongs, and the shoelessness quite strange, and I occasionally wondered if Won Buddhism was some sort of cult. Nonetheless, something kept me coming back. I think it was our ordained clergy. They embodied and actually lived what seemed to me to be a fully realized life of dedication, awareness, meaningfulness, and service to others. I thought, well, I don't really understand what's going on here, but I want to be more like them. I began to read books about Buddhism and study the writings of Master Sotaesan and Master Chongsan. I talked with fellow practitioners like Michael Macklin, who had been here before me. He seemed quite rational and knowledgeable. I visited the Won Institute in Philadelphia and came to understand more about the scholarly and academic roots of Won Buddhism in both America and Korea. I kept looking for the fly in the ointment, but never found one. In time, the teachings, the Sangha, and the Kyomunims helped me to understand that practice is the key. Those Kyomunims who welcomed me at the temple were not happy accidents, but rather the result of dedicated practice in their own lives. And they taught us that we, too, could achieve peace and wisdom through the threefold practice: cultivation of the spirit, inquiry into facts and universal principles, and mindful choice in action. Even as a young middle and high school student, I was always attracted to and curious about people who just seemed to have some kind of genuine religious faith. I went with friends to their churches, both Catholic and Protestant, and to Jewish synagogues, both Orthodox and Reform. However, I was fairly certain of what I believed. I concluded early on that I had no use for miracles, for heaven and hell, or for any concept of a personal intervening God. Religion in general seemed to require a leap of faith I simply couldn't make. These were thoughts I voiced to no one living as I did in the Bible Belt of the American South. My parents and our family, we never talked about religion or faith. I continued to struggle with matters of faith. It has helped that in Won Buddhism, we don't talk about God or virgin births, yet we share with all religions a core belief that there is something larger than ourselves and that there exists a non-material realm. In Won Buddhism, we call it a noumenal realm, a reality beyond what we can see, smell, taste, touch, hear, or think. That noumenal realm is a counterpart to the phenomenal realm of things we can see, smell, taste, touch, or hear. We also speak of chi energy, universal principles, permanence and impermanence, no birth and no death. This framing is genuinely helpful. But how is it possible to fully believe in something like permanence or no birth and no death when we are literally surrounded by concrete evidence to the contrary? The flower wilts, the spider doesn't survive the winter, the rock erodes. People die. We see this, we know it to be true. How then does one arrive at an intuitive understanding of felt belief that there is something beyond, something permanent beneath all this change? That is precisely what faith asks of us. And as I have had no direct experience of an immaterial reality, that faith is hard to come by. But this is where practice comes in. With continued study and contemplation, I am slowly moving toward a broader acceptance and understanding of what I believe, not just what I disbelieve. Our founding teacher, Master Sotasan, defines belief this way. Belief means faith, which is the motive force that settles the mind when we try to accomplish anything. A motive force that settles the mind. I love that. I don't really know what it means, but I think it means that faith isn't a conclusion you argue yourself into. It is something that arises when you stop fighting long enough to settle the mind. I think for me, it means that I should abandon my walking around in this world with a near constant refutational state of mind, blocking spiritual growth. Won Buddhism this practice has allowed me to feel more comfortable with religion and spirituality. It has allowed me to explore the spiritual and moral dimensions of myself without feeling in conflict with science or modern social values. It has given me the opportunity to come together in a structured environment with other people to explore what it means to live a meaningful life. We are held together by a common thread of searching for wisdom and compassion. The Dharma, the Kyomonims, and the Sangha guide us on this path. For me, practice is what keeps me coming to the temple, and faith means believing in the process itself, trusting that the path eventually leads towards some form of environment. Carl Sagan, an astronomer and planetary scientist, wrote in his book, The Demon-Haunted World, quote, "Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality. When we recognize our place in an immensity of light years and in the passage of ages, when we grasp the intricacy, beauty, and subtlety of life, then that soaring feeling, that sense of elation and humility combined, is surely spiritual." In chapter 1 of the Won Buddhist scripture, Master Soji-san outlines his founding motive, which is to lead all sentient beings to a vast and immeasurable paradise through faith in a religion based on truth and training in morality based on facts. Won Buddhism espouses a doctrine based on truth, not miracles, and a morality rooted in realism and practice. That is why it has become so important to me, and why I believe it will flourish in the United States. Won Buddhist teachings are adaptable, free of rigid dogma, accessible, egalitarian, focused on gratitude, and applicable to daily life. That is why I have made Won Buddhism my spiritual home. And I guess you could say I have found my faith after all. Thank you for listening.